The first time when you see her in a group of other women, she's like everyone like us, talking about things, about children. She's got 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. And as a mother, she will be concerned about their education, their health, and their overall way of life. But when it comes at discussing issues that affect our country, you can see that she doesn't change, but she's got strong beliefs of a true unity of the Rwandan people, which is based through proper democracy and true reconciliation of the Rwandan people. She's a very firm believer of governments recognizing people's potential, putting people first, that people don't live in fear, that people are not oppressed.
We gaan direct in de dialoog organiseren tussen de verschillende groepen, tussen de Hutus en Tutsis en op verschillende niveaus, dat we elkaar eens zijn wie komt op macht en op welke manier en hoe gaan we delen die plaats in de stadsrichting. En op deze manier denk ik dat iedereen zou accepteren dat hij is vertegenwoordigd in het rechtbank.
Victoire en Lynn kregen in Nederland nog een zoon, Ries. Hij is 7. Hij weet dat zijn moeder over een paar maanden al vertrekt. Even een vraag aan jou. Wat gaat je moeder nou doen? Gaat ze naar Rwanda, weet je daar iets van?
Ja.
Wat gaat ze doen?
Veilig maken.
Oké. En is dat een goed idee?
Ja.
Ja? Maar wat wil ze precies doen? Veilig maken? Hoe dan?
Dat er geen oorlog meer komt.
Oké. En hoe gaat ze dat doen, weet je dat?
Nee.
Ze wil president worden?
Ja.
Ja, dat weet je wel. En wil jij dan ook naar Rwanda of wil je hier blijven?
Hier.
Ja? Want is het hier beter dan in Rwanda?
Ja.
Waarom dan?
Want je daar kan sterven.
Oké.
I knew that Victoire was a woman of determination and dedication, and she loved her people. She made a very tough decision of going back to Rwanda, a country that has very small rule of law, a country that is ruled in fear, and a country where justice is not provided for all.
If RPF, which is the ruling party for President Kagame, sees you being independent of it, they see you as a negative journalist, as a person who is worth dead.
What freedoms are you teaching me?
All the basic freedoms don't exist. When you find there's no freedom of association, there's no freedom of speech, there's no justice system to talk about. So now it is the turn of the military running outside, the military being imprisoned in the country. So everybody can see that it's not really directed towards one ethnic group. It is now general.
I guess the question I still am trying to probe is whether there can be space for political opposition in President Paul Kagame's Rwanda.
Oh, yes.
And
that's
so
why...
far, it seems that it's very tough. Let's take Victoire Ingabire.
Before we leave that.
My job has not been to create oppositions. That's not my job. It has never been my job.
The newer opposition parties that have been formed in the last year or two have one by one been silenced or otherwise excluded from the race. And individuals, so not only politicians but even journalists, for example, and other Rwandans who may have views different from those of the government, have found themselves at the receiving end of what has become quite a violent campaign of intimidation.
The true opposition was not allowed to register or was arrested. You can look at one of the leaders of the opposition, Victoire Ingabire, was arrested. The other leader is Bernard Ntaganda. He's in prison, and there are allegations that he was tortured. The other one, Habineza, who used to be a member of the RPF, the president's political party, his deputy was killed, and people allege that President Kagame is behind those killings.
She's also a threat to the Kagame regime in that if there was ever a free and fair election in the country of Rwanda and Victoire Ingabire Umuhoza ran against Paul Kagame, that she would win against him.
Kagame assumed the presidency in 2000, but has been in de facto power since his rebel army swept to power in 1994.
Kagame awarded himself 93% of the vote.
But can you really be proud of this victory when you really had weak opposition that seemed to be very sympathetic towards the RPF anyway?
Well, I'm not responsible for the weak opposition. If the opposition is weak, it's because they are weak.
These journalists, these human rights activists, these masqueraders, they should not speak for you. Speak for yourself. So every day, oh, progress, but what? Why don't you go and answer your own but where you belong? Why do you come to us? Go and answer the but. When I see you, there are, even for me, I stand here and say, oh, you are developed. You have lessons you teach others, but...
There's growing international concern about Rwanda. Over the past 2 months, there's been a series of attacks on government critics, both at home and abroad. In June, the exiled former head of the Rwandan army, General Kayumba Nyamwasa, was shot in the stomach in Johannesburg. He survived and accused President Kagame of ordering the shooting. 6 days later, a journalist investigating that attack was shot dead outside his home in Kigali. He claimed he had evidence the Rwandan government was behind the attempt on the general's life. Then, 3 weeks ago, the body of Andre Kagwa Risereka, an opposition politician, was found almost decapitated near the southern town of Butare.
The Metropolitan Police have taken the extraordinary step of warning 2 British citizens from Rwanda living in London that they're at risk of being assassinated by the Rwandan government. Legal notices were sent to a former Lib Dem candidate, Rene Mugenzi, and Jonathan Musonera. We've spoken with both men.
The controversy concerns the government of this man, Paul Kagame, who's taken some credit for unifying the country after a terrible civil war between the Hutu and Tutsi tribes.
This is the Minister for Human Rights.
But Rene Mugenzi doesn't see it this way. He's a British citizen who settled here in 1997. Both he and his wife have stood for local elections, such as their commitment to life in Britain. Rene arranged a meeting last year with Amnesty International to remember this massacre in 1995. He says human rights groups have evidence that this one was perpetrated by forces loyal to President Kagame.
The army of Rwandan Patriotic Army came and then shoot them unarmed civilians, and the UN peacekeeper were looking at this. About 80,000 people died.
So 8,000 people died? Yes. On the 12th of May, the Metropolitan Police sent this letter to Rene, warning that the Rwandan government poses an imminent threat to your life.
They told me they have got credible and reliable information that I might be in danger. The government of Rwanda might kill me. And they told me, as I'm aware that they have done it in another country, I should be careful.
Another warning letter was sent to the man on the left, a former Rwandan army officer who fought alongside Paul Kagame in the 1990s. He now lives in London.
I was scared because they told me, the Rwandan government, they tried to finish your life, and I was shocked.
We've been rather dazzled by this in Rwanda, that there is worsening repression, that rivals are being killed, there's a climate of fear, and we continue to give £83 million a year to this country in aid. Can we justify that?
Well, I think it's a dilemma, and I think it is a mistake we've made in the past, where we have tended to give, if you like, respect to individuals, when what we should be doing is building institutions that rise above any particular individual or political party or focus.
But who is that individual? Is that the president of Rwanda that we saw with David Cameron?
Clearly, the president of Rwanda is in a very powerful position.
This nonsense from outside is occupying our space. This nonsense from outside. These teachers of political space, these teachers of press freedom, these so-called teachers of freedoms. Some people just come from nowhere, useless people. I see every time in the pictures, you know, some lady, and the world is saying, the opposition leader. Well, I know those who say it and who support that.
There is no justice in Rwanda. There is no democracy in Rwanda. People are not free to say what they think.
People are saying is that the goalpost keeps shifting, that the level playing field doesn't exist. Well, let's take Victoire Ingabire. Now, she's the president of the FDU Ingabire, and she says she's faced a very intense public campaign of vilification. Basically, you have openly warned her that she could face prosecution under Rwanda's genocide ideology laws.
No, but you see,
and people are saying that you use those to quash political opposition.
I don't think it's just an insult to us or to the nation.
It's very ethnic. It's a very ethnic reading of the laws in Rwanda, because obviously using a genocide ideology law, since the genocide was against the Tutsi, would mean that you're trying to silence the Hutu. That's basically what it means.
When we were accused of genocide ideology, we were terrified. It's not an easy thing to be accused of this, as you can be persecuted, even imprisoned.
Gertrude Nyampinga says her human rights group was accused of genocide ideology for exposing election irregularities. More than half her colleagues fled abroad.
I would say we live under a regime that doesn't favour freedom of expression. The authorities don't like criticism, so when people do criticise, they become afraid that they'll be threatened or persecuted. It's not a good idea to speak out.
Many Hutus were killed alongside Tutsis during the genocide and in revenge attacks afterwards. But if you talk too much about that history, or suggest that Hutus and Tutsis might sometimes have different interests now,